ago. And it was entitled The Chest of Joash then. And if y'all recall, we got that chest sitting in the back there. It's not just a decorative piece, but it is something that we're going to be using here really in the month of November. And I really want you to be praying about what you can do towards this. So I'm going to just present some needs tonight and let you know why we need to do what we need to do, and what they did in the text and why it helped them. And so let me just give you some background on 2 Chronicles 24. You see that the sons of Athaliah came into the temple and destroyed and broke down the strongholds. They vandalized the temple of God and set it for ruin for a long time. If you go over to 2 Kings chapter 12, the things about Kings and Chronicles, they kind of parallel each other. So if you go over to 2 Kings chapter 12, you'll see the parallel story to this. And you'll see that Joash, who came into power at the age of 7, around the 23rd year of his reign, which he'd been about 30 years old, he decided that it's time to do something to the house of God. In other words, the house of God has sat in ruin for so long, and it was just desecrated, and something needed to be happened. Well, Athaliah was a wicked, wicked, wicked woman. She was the daughter of Israel's king Ahab. She married a man named King Jehoram, and was the mother of Jehoram's successor, King Ahaziah. Jehoram died prematurely by disease. Ahaziah was killed only a year later. And when this happened, Athaliah, the mean, mean woman, she went and made sure that she had no heirs, or so she thought. There was somebody that took baby Joash and decided to hide him, and for 6 years they hid this baby from everybody. Jehoiada, he kept the baby, and he kept this baby hidden for 6 years. And so Joash was rightful heir to the throne, but Athaliah, had she known about it, would have had him killed. When Joash was 7 years old, Jehoiada, in a display of great courage, foresight, and faith, orchestrated a plan to overthrow Athaliah. And he was successful in doing this, and then placed rightful King Joash, which is the heir of David, on the throne. Jehoiada secretly amassed a large force at the temple by a device of detaining all workers when their shift ended and a new shift arrived. These men he armed and stationed strategically in the temple perimeter. When all was ready, he brought Joash out of hiding, crowned him, and presented him a copy of the Constitution and proclaimed him king. There was a great celebration, for no one was happy with this wicked woman's rule. So that's the background of where you are understanding. And just to get a picture of Athaliah in her wickedness, she was the daughter of Jezebel. You all know Jezebel. I mean, you probably don't know her personally, but you probably know somebody that you've called Jezebel before, right? Just mean, wicked, and so she's following in her mother's footsteps. She's been taken out of power. Joash, in verse 1 of chapter 24 of 2 Chronicles, is being put into power at the age of 7 years old. Now, I can't imagine a 7-year-old having the fortitude to be able to reign, but he did. And so here's what happens. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. And Joash did that which was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. Now, Joash was the grandson of Athaliah. And so Jehoiada took him 2 wives, and he begat sons and daughters. And it came to pass after this. So some time has passed 23 years has passed by. He's been married, and now he's beginning to see things. He was minded to repair the house of the Lord, and he gathered together the priests and the Levites and said unto them, Go out into the cities of Judah, and gather of all Israel money to repair the house of your God from year to year, and see ye hasten the matter. Howbeit the Levites hastened it not. And the king called for Jehoiada the chief, and said unto him, Why hast thou not required the Levites to bring in out of Judah and out of Jerusalem the collection according to the commandment of Moses, the servant of the Lord, and of the congregation of Israel for the tabernacle of witness? And the sons of Athaliah, that wicked woman, had broken up the house of God, and also dedicated things of the house of the Lord did they bestow upon Balaam. you can see what kind of position they're in. The house of the Lord was laid in ruin. They took everything that was dedicated to God's house, and they began to worship Balaam with this. So in verse 1 through 5, you see that the king had a desire. The desire was, hey, we've got to repair and bring improvement to the house of God. We've got to do something, but I can't do it alone. The king knew, hey, I cannot do this stuff all by myself. So he sends out a decree, go and collect some money for all these projects that we got to do around the temple. So his desire was to bring improvement. You see that in verse 4. It came to pass after this that Joash was minded to repair the house of God. He looked at it and he said, something needs to be done. And he wanted people to be able to notice that, hey, something has to be done. It is set in ruin for years. She's made it a place, Athaliah made it a place that no longer set aside for the worship of God, but for the worship of Balaam or Baal. Joash had been protected by his aunt. Now he's out there and he's the king, and he's deciding to do something 23 years after he's placed on the throne. I bring this to your attention. I want you to notice this passage because if you walk around our campus at any time, you're going to see some improvements that need to be made. Am I right? Am I right? If we're just thinking about it and just looking at our facility, God's house, I think God's house deserves our best. And maybe I'm just old school in thinking that, but I think God's house deserves our best. And I think there's some things that we need to do. So I want to encourage you, as we get through this passage, I want to encourage you to begin praying right now what you could give towards the chest of Joash. This is above your offering. This is not taking the place of your tithe or anything like this. Is something that says, you know what? I want to give such and such a dollar so that we can make improvements around the area. Don't y'all know costs of things are going up, and to improve things, it costs a little bit more than what it used to cost. We need to bring improvement to our church. And I'm going to get into a list of some things that we need to improve on and why I've come to that conclusion. But we need everybody, and this is what the second thing about the king's desire, what it brought about. Not only brought about improvement, and that he wanted it for improvement, but he wanted it so that everybody can be involved. He wanted to bring involvement. And the reason I tell you about this tonight, and we go back over this sermon again, is because I want you to be involved. And this is something we're going to be pushing on Sunday mornings as well, but just felt led to go over this with you tonight. We want God's people helping in this matter. We want I want myself to help in this matter to see what we can get accomplished when God's people just give. And I know we don't like talking about money as Baptists, and we want to kind of avoid the subject. But let's be honest, to improve things, it costs money. And usually it costs a little bit more money than what maybe is that we have in our budget. You know, we've got things set aside in our budget for various needs and various things, but there's really nothing in there that says, hey, house improvements, let's go redo this, or let's go make this better. The problem Joash faced was he gave it to the Levites and he said, I need you to be quick in this manner and go do this, but they didn't do it. They disobeyed him, so he went and he says, well, hey, how come this is happening? I've given you a commandment, and you're going to see that they will go and eventually do this. So what are some things around our church that we need to focus on? Several months back, I put a survey out there on the app, and I made one available for you about how we can just improve things around our church. And the answers I've got there was a whole bunch of answers, but I would say the majority of the answers that I've got gave me some ideas about what we can do to make Temple Baptist Church just a little bit better. And the number one thing that people said we need to improve on, and you can agree or disagree, but the number one thing that the survey said that we need to improve on is the bathrooms that are right out here. Because let's face it, they're dated, right? I know, we've got to look at things as a visitor. We look at things and we're like, you know what? Maybe we need to do something. And I think that could be such a simple little fix, just going in there, painting, and doing something else. So that was the overwhelming thing that we needed to focus on. And then there were some other focuses. One was the carpet in here. I know we come here week in and week out, and it really becomes we're just looking at it, we're used to it, right? But we've got to be thinking forward. We've got to be thinking, how can we make improvements, and how can we make it look like we care about God's house? And to do that, it's going to take people getting behind it and saying, you know what, I want to give to this so that these things can be done. Now, is it all going to be done in a year? Absolutely not. I'm giving you small things, and I'm going to give you great big things. All right, I'm giving you small things just to kind of help you not get overwhelmed just a little bit. Then, not only just the carpet down here, but if you take a journey upstairs, you take a trip back to 1970s, right? Where it's all gold up there. And that was good for the 70s. But I think we should make it all cohesive, right? Or am I with y'all with me on that one? Or y'all just don't care? Y'all don't go upstairs, right? So you don't see it. But there are people that go upstairs, and one picture that it presents is that, hey, maybe we're not caring about that stuff up there. And then thinking about the old sanctuary. Now, I know there's memories, and I know there's a lot of things going on in the old sanctuary, but if you were to type into your GPS tonight, 2200 Memorial Court, it takes you to the front door of our old sanctuary. How many's ever been over there to the front door here recently? All right. What I want you to do tonight, everybody, when you leave, I want you just to take a drive over there, and I want you to look at it. Because what it looks like to me is if that's the address that people are coming to, and they pull up, it looks like nobody's home. Because the paint's chipping, it's rusted, there's windows knocked out, and hopefully in the next year or so, we're going to be presenting to you some plans on what we can do with that old sanctuary. But it is something that it draws people's attention, and they get there, and they don't know to come here, and so they look at that, and they automatically think, at least in my brain, they think, man, does anybody live here? Now, how many of you want people to know we're here? I do. I want people to know I'm here, and I want people to come in and be like, man, that looks nice right there. Not to say, hey, does anybody care what's going on around here? And I know we don't go over to the old sanctuary, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, because we come in this way because we know better. But if you drive over there now, I want to encourage you, drive over there. Just go out this parking lot over here, drive down there, take a left on Memorial Court, and you can see that something needs to be done. You say, how much is it going to cost to get all this stuff done? I have no idea. I'm just presenting needs tonight, and I'm asking you to consider what they're going to do in this text. Consider just giving so that the house of God could get repaired. We'll start off with the small stuff, but now here's what I'm telling you that we can do right now that doesn't cost a dime. You ready for this? We can just come up here on a work day, and we can clean certain areas up, right? If you walk around this facility, this campus, you'll find a lot of storage spots. And throughout the years, we've just accumulated. We put things here and put things there, and we probably don't even know that they're there anymore. So what we need to do is we need to go through meticulously, and we need to reconsider these things. I know one area, you wouldn't go over there unless you're involved in the kitchen area, is the room just past, at the very end of the Family Life Center where the tablecloths are at, right there. It is in total disarray. There's a tablecloth thing that has fallen over, and I think a simple repair of that would be to come in with some big bars, like a closet bar, put a shelf right above it, and hang the tablecloths there so that we can just have them there and they're not falling over. Because when ladies are in there trying to get things for homecoming, they're tripping over things and almost getting hurt. And so I think just coming up here on a day and saying, you know what, I just want to clean God's house. I'm not talking about cleaning like Miss Rhonda cleans. I'm talking about coming up here and just removing clutter, right? I know this is a different type of message, right? But I'm just trying to present you with a need that we have at this church that we need to take serious. This is your church. Amen? I want you to be proud of your church. And I want people that you invite to this church to know that we're proud of this church. I love this church. I tell you what, this church is my home. my family has pretty much grown up here over the last 9 years. So it has become my home, and I want to see it just being utilized in the best way it can. And I think you would all agree with me. And I'm not trying to make you feel guilty or anything like that. I'm just asking you to consider what you can do. Now, there's people that probably can give a little bit, and there's people that can probably give a little bit more than a little bit, and there's people that probably can give a little bit more than that. I'm not telling you what to give. I'm just asking you to pray about it. Pray about it. And if the Lord lays it on your heart and you want to give something to the Chest of Joash, make sure that you put it in the envelope and you mark Chest of Joash. Anytime you designate a fund in Temple Baptist Church, make sure that you put the designated, I want this to go here, whether it's Faith Promise, whether it's building fund, whether it's food pantry, whatever it is, you need to designate that because we can't read your mind. So the king had a desire. I have a desire tonight to see God's house repaired in some fashion. There's air conditioner units right now that are not working. If you ever go into that little Sunday school classroom right there, especially in the Sunday morning in summertime, you notice it's hot in there. Well, what's happened is that air conditioner has reached its peak. It's been here, I believe, and Brother Roger's not in here, but I believe it's been here since the building was built, which is a long time ago. So, man, whoever built that air conditioner unit, they did a wonderful job. Because we're in 2023 right now, we're just talking about, hey, we got to fix it. We got to repair that. And so those are some things that we know we need to do. Are they all going to be done this year or next year? They're not. Well, it just depends on what is given. So, secondly, in verse 6 through 9, you see he makes a declaration. He declares it to the Levites. He wanted them to get involved. He said, Levites, lead the charge. You take the responsibility, but they neglected the responsibility. You see, the church doesn't just belong to one person or a group of people. The church belongs to us. We are a part of Temple Baptist Church. And so we should have a desire, and I'm declaring this to you tonight to get your involvement, to say, hey, will you help? So what did they do? Well, they were a little bit more aggressive than what we're going to be. They had, of course, they put it out there in the temple, but sometimes they'd go out to Israel and be like, okay, what do you got? So that chest is not going to move back there. Y'all can all see it back there. I may even move it somewhere where y'all can see it up here. The reason it's back there is because I don't want it to be a show where somebody sees you dropping in something in the Chest of Joash and you want a round of applause. It's back there so that you can just walk in, drop it in, and nobody but God knows you've done it. So that's what that chest is for back there. And if you want it, again, to the Chest of Joash, make sure you designate that. What did he declare in verse 7-9? He said, take the chest, put it outside the temple, and the people were to come to the temple and put their offering. Notice verse 8. And at the king's commandment, they made a chest and set it without the gate of the house of the Lord. Where'd they put it? Right where people are coming in. Where's that chest? Right where you come in at, right? It's in, some of you probably walk by and you know what it's for, but that's what it's for. So you walk in now and you're like, okay, there's a chest there. What do you want me to do? And they made a proclamation through Judah and Jerusalem to bring to the Lord the collection that Moses, the servant of God, laid upon Israel in the wilderness. He's talking to them on behalf, hey, I'm Jewish and I'm reaching in Jewish customs to you, and I want you to respond. We don't have Jewish customs that I'm trying to get you to grab onto today. I'm just trying to get you to see the need of where our church is, that we need to make some improvements. Would y'all agree with me on that? All right, I got a couple of you. Some of you may be on the fence. That's okay. But we look around and improvements need to be made. I mean, I think anybody can see that. So, number 3, the king had a determination. The king determined to do something. In verse 10, all the princes of the people rejoiced and brought in and cast into the chest until they had made an end. Did you see that? They rejoiced. In other words, this was not something that was hard on them to do, but you see that the king's determination brought rejoicing. It brought rejoicing. People were excited. Why? Why do y'all think people were excited? Come on, y'all tell me. Y'all help me out here. What happened to the temple? It was desecrated. Now they hear a decree from the king. Hey, we're taking up money for the house of God. that made people rejoice, right? So know this, that when we do this and when you drop that offering in for the chest of Joash, that it's going to go towards the improvement of Temple Baptist Church. There's probably people there that remember what the temple looked like in that day. And they're like, man, we want to get it back to its original glory. Now, it may look a little different, but we want to restore the temple. So there was a call to restore and repair the temple of God. They caught a glimpse of the king's vision, and what did they do? I love this. They come rejoicing. They bring in their offerings. Now, look at verse 11. And now it came to pass that at what time the chest was brought into the king's office by the hand of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, the king's scribes and the high priest officer came and emptied the chest and took it and carried it to his place again. Thus they did day by day and gathered money in abundance. And the king and Jehoiada gave it to such as did the work of the service of the house of the Lord and hired masons and carpenters to repair the house of the Lord. They said, hey, we need money. We got to have money to make repairs. We got to have money to do certain things. And so they set out the chest. And what happens? What happens on the day it gets set out? It gets full. So what do they do the next day? They set it out again. It gets full again. And what does the king do? The king then takes the money and he goes out to all these people that know how to do these wonderful jobs and he says, Here, carpenter, I need you to come in and I need you to repair this part of our building. Here, mason, I need you to come in and do some mason work in this part of the building. And before you know it, the house of God began to be repaired, and it was an exciting time. The king's determination brought rejoicing, but it also brought repetition. Now, we're not going to do this every week. I'm not going to tell you about it every week. I will mention it next Sunday and probably a couple Sundays after that. And we'll focus on the month of November because I know you may not have something one day. And listen, you give when the Lord says to give. And if it's a one-time gift, then you just do that, okay? You do how the Lord leads you. In verse 12 through 14, because the chest was filled and because the people gathered together and did what they needed to do, it brought restoration. Notice in verse 12, and the king and Jehoiada gave it to such as did the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and hired masons and carpenters to repair the house of the Lord, and also such as wrought iron and brass to mend the house of the Lord. So the workmen wrought, and the work was perfected by them, and they set the house of God in his state and strengthened it. When they had finished it, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, whereof were made vessels for the house of the Lord, even vessels to minister and offer withal, and spoons and vessels of gold and silver. And they offered burnt offerings in the house of the Lord continually all the days of Jehoiada the high priest. So there was a desire by a young man, 30 years old, and he says, I have a desire for God's house to be restored. And then he simply asked the people there in Israel, will you help? Will you help? So what I'm asking you tonight, is simply, will you pray about helping? Will you pray about giving something towards the chest of Joash so that repairs can be made and restoration can begin and we can make necessary improvements to our church? Because if you're like me, I know you love this church. I know you do. Some of you have been here for years and years and years, and I know you love this church. And listen, God, I believe, has great plans for this church, right? He does. I believe we just need to realize when there's things that are falling apart, and we need to clean it up. We need to fix it. So I think the first step that we're going to be taking probably here soon is we're just going to have a work day. We're going to have a work day, and we're going to organize different places of our building. We're going to declutter some areas, and I think that's something you can get involved in. It don't cost you a dime, amen? It just costs you a little bit of manual labor. Coming and being with everybody, I think that would just be help. But here's what I want Temple Baptist. I want our church, I want our light to shine brightly. All right? I don't want us to be an embarrassment, or our church to be an embarrassment, or anything else to God in this community. I want to be the best that we can be. Amen? I actually want to give our best foot forward and do the best we can, not for anybody in this room, not for anybody outside these walls, but for God Himself, because He's done so much for us. And so tonight, the invitation is going to be different. I know this is not a tug on your heart kind of message, but it kind of is and it kind of isn't. And what I want you to do there in this invitation, you can stay there in your seat. I'll even let you sit down tonight. But what I want you to do is this. I don't want you to write any checks. I don't want you to give anything tonight to it. I want you to pray about it. Number one, pray about it. And whatever the Lord leads on your heart, just follow the Lord. And know that when that's given, we're going to make necessary improvements around here because of your give. So tonight during the invitation, as Brother Wayne sings, we may just let Miss Karen play tonight and let you take a rest down there. Y'all pray for Brother Wayne. But anyway, I'll get in that in a minute. We're going to just have a short time of invitation. And what I want you to do is I want you to pray right there where you are and just ask God, what can I do to help Temple Baptist Church? There's a call to repair and restore the house of God. I pray that you'll just take that serious tonight. Let's pray, and then we'll have a short time of just prayer for you. You can pray there in your seat. Heavenly Father,